Hello and welcome. I am Scarpalock. This is City of Heroes. We're with Liberty Lass, our level 47 brute who has 2.25 million XP to go to get to level 48. And we're down, influenced by several million. We had close to 30 million, I think, the last time we checked. But what I have done is we're here in our base, and I finally got tired of all of these ones over here that had SOs, and there was one SO here and one SO here. You can tell they're the 50s. And I actually collected one of these, and I think this one naturally, but I'm level 47. I've never gotten more than a couple of drops of total of the endurance recovery, and I needed 7 total. And so I just said, screw it. I bought the enhancement, the recipes, and went ahead and crafted the level 50s. So we have them now, and we're fully IO'd, except for the slots that will be getting at level 48 and 50. And we should be getting some more sets and stuff in, but I'll do that as we go. And we're here in our base, and now we are continuing on the psychic plane. We need to go to Penelope Inn. I think she's going to end up coming with us in one of these missions, which I actually don't like because I just don't like it when NPCs follow me around. I feel like I got to protect them, and they usually don't help that much. Yeah, they help a little bit, but I'd really rather just. And what annoys me is then the mission is tuned to be a little harder because they know you're going to have an NPC with you who's like equivalent of a boss or maybe an elite lieutenant. Not it's they're stronger than a lieutenant, and so that's annoying to me because then the mission is tuned harder so that if I decide to ditch the NPC, it makes it more difficult than it needs to be because they're assuming the NPC would be with me. So I prefer just not to have to deal with the AI's pathfinding and stuff. It's just I find it very frustrating. But unfortunately, this mission I think is going to call for her to be with us. So either this one or the next one. We got to talk to Harvey first. And then we go on the next mission, which is going to be in Fault Line. So I shouldn't have come here. It's okay, we'll go back to the base. And we'll head over to the hazard zones. I need to do more work on this base. I got it to a certain point and then never really polished it up. I didn't put the living quarters or the library or anything in it. I really kind of need to do that at some point. I keep forgetting about it. I always end up logging into play. So we're investigating Vanessa DeVore's memories. And these are, I don't know what this one's going to be like, but some of these are really weird in that, well, I know what happened, right? Some of these are weird in that they take you to a door of a building and then you end up outside. And I think the reason is that originally these were created before there were outdoor missions, and the you would go in here and you'd be in an office or something, and or you'd go into a cave or whatever. And now, right, it leads to the outdoor, which is strange. Okay, so we need to investigate Vanessa's memories. There should be memory glowies here, and we'll look for those. Yeah, so somebody was talking about, I asked in one of the videos recently whether or not everybody else finds these outdoor missions as frustrating as I do, and what this one of my commenters pointed out is that these missions, if you want to mine them, what'll happen is the ones that Unai Kemen gives you, he gives you enough that you can get from like level 46 to 50 just by doing his story arcs. If you defeat everybody, if you treat them all, I guess, as defeat alls and not just click on the glowies, you can level up that way, and it's good, I guess, practice for the types of missions you get when you get to the trials and stuff. I don't really know because I don't do the trials, but so I guess some people like them a lot more than I do. for something like this, I would love to have the option to go onto the old map, right? The one that was the indoor map before they converted it to an outdoor mission. Right. One of the things about, I mean, it's certainly the case, and you've certainly seen it, that I've been on the older maps and still not been able to find glowies, right? But um, one of the things that makes it a little bit easier to find glowies, and oh, we're not looking for a glowy, we're looking for her memory, 1998. One of the things that makes it a little easier to find hostages and glowies inside in the indoor missions, right, is that you're physically restricted as to where you can go, and you can't really be that far physically from the glowies when you're walking through the hallways and rooms, because they can only be a certain distance away. Now, they might spawn inside a wall, and I certainly missed one on an indoor mission an episode or two ago, I think. I certainly have missed them, and I think I can't remember if I posted that one or not. There've been, as I've said in one of my videos, there've been a couple of these where I've done them and felt like, yeah, it's not worth watching. I didn't really say much. It was kind of boring, and so I'm not going to post it. But yeah, you can miss them indoors, but you can only be maybe this far from a glowy if you go through all of the indoor map, right? Go through the corridors. Whereas in an outdoor zone, you can be all the way across the map from a glowy, and it can be really hard to find them because there's nothing enclosing you and forcing you to be physically in proximity enough to the glowy that you can hear it. Okay, now we're going to Founders Falls. So I think there are memories from 98, 2001, and 2003 or 4. And the reason they are those years is because that's when this mission was made, when the story arc was made. Right? So it wouldn't go later than that because you're looking at the past. Oh yes, and somebody else asked me. We were talking. We were back and forth. Like, did the developers ever explain the algorithm for the reward merits, right? For how many you get, because it doesn't seem to have any rhyme or reason to it. Apparently, Synapse did. And if you go to the Homecoming wiki, they do have the formula. I posted it in a reply, because they said, did they ever explain it? He said they never did. I said, yeah, I don't think they ever did either. But I said, let me just look it up. It turns out it's this really complicated formula, and the reason it doesn't make any sense to the average player is because the things that give reward merits are things like trials, task forces, story arcs, right, and certain things like that. And the way they figured out how many to give partially depends on data they collected from what players were doing. Now, I don't know if they collected the data before they started the reward merit process or after, but what they looked at was how many minutes on average does it take like a group of players to do the oh man, it's gonna be really hard to find this prisoner, isn't it? How long does it take a group of players to do a story arc or to do a task force, right? If it takes 180 minutes on average, then that's in their data. If it takes 120 minutes, that's their data point. And so they're basically multiplying. They've got like a bunch of multipliers, and so and adders. So you're adding, you're multiplying the number of minutes it takes to do the story arc on average. And I don't know. It's not clear to me from the formula. Are they talking about solo players, groups of players, all players? I don't know. Right? Probably takes longer to go through this with a large group than it does solo. I guess we're just going to have to fight everybody, because I have no idea where she is. So we're just going to have to fight them all. And sooner or later, we'll tab target into whoever's got her as a captive. So this will probably be the only other mission in this episode, because it's going to take a long time. This also would be easier to do if it was daylight, but it's always the case, 100% of the time, When I come in here, it's dark in Paragon City. Um, it's just bad luck. It also seems like I always get the find thing missions. You know, like the defeat alls. You know, maybe it's daylight out, but when you have to find one guy or one glowy in a giant map like this, it's always dark. When I always end up coming in here in the dark. It's really frustrating. That part's really frustrating. I wish you could set it so that it was just permanently daytime here in the zone, right? If you don't want to do it in the dark, like not in the city, but just in the indoor mission. There's no particular reason why they couldn't disconnect the ambient light here from the light in the city. Anyway, so yeah, it has to do with their how long they think it's going to take you to do. Also, how hard the thing is. So trials are harder than task forces. Task forces are harder than story arcs, and so you get more merits for doing a trial than a task force of the same duration, and more money from doing a task force than from doing a, a story arc. And so that's what's kind of affecting it, I guess. And then also there is a weird correction factor, and I would love to know what Homecoming is doing about this, because I don't think they're collecting data anymore, and you shouldn't need to collect data at this point on any of the arcs that exist in the game because they've been around for so many years. But when, I guess when reward merits first came out and when they put new story arcs into the game, they added some sort of an uncertainty factor into their calculations that had to do with how much certainty they had of the data. Like, in other words, sample size. So if they didn't have enough data on how long it took you to do, say, the Terravolta trial, then they multiplied the reward merits by a small, like a reduction factor, right? I guess on the theory that the more people do the trial, the quicker they will do. The faster the average trial speed, completion speed will be. You know, how do I say this? When people first try to do a trial, they screw it up a lot, and it takes them longer to do it. After it becomes known how to do it, the general population will become quicker at doing it, even if you've never done it before, because there will be a known way to do it, and you may have read about it on the forum, or you may have somebody in your team who's done it. And so consequently, I guess they expected the average completion time of most trials, story arcs, task forces, etc., to slowly get lower, right? More slowly get quicker to do it, right? With the players would get quicker to do it. I'm not explaining it right, but they expected your time to completion to go down to an asymptote, right? That it might start at 3 hours because people are face planning and they're not doing it right, and then little by little they would learn how to do it, and it would take 2 hours, and then eventually settle on an hour and a half, right? And that would be basically the quickest you could run through it. And eventually the players would get to the point where everybody was doing it about as fast as you can do it, because they have experience with the task force, and it's a known entity, and you now can be very efficient going through it. And so there's some sort of an uncertainty weighting factor, and I think level also, factors in and everything. So it does have to do with how long the story arc is, but not the way I would have done it, right? The way I would have done it would have been the number of missions that you have to do, right? They were doing it by how many minutes it takes. And I guess they were trying to... I think what they were trying to do was reach some sort of a known average number of merits gained per hour for players who were doing, whether you're doing story arcs, trials, task forces. They were trying to make it so that whatever you were doing, you were getting about the same number of merits per hour, per real hour, right? Whereas I would probably have done it by per mission or per story arc or something, or I don't know. But they were trying to, again, graded by level, right? So level had something to do with it too. But I think what they were trying to do was make it so that whether you were playing Trials, Task Forces, or Story Arcs, whether you were soloing or in a team, you would average a certain number of merits per hour. And they figured out how many those were supposed to be, and then they created an algorithm for the reward merits on that basis. And it's super weird to do it that way, right? Because what they could have done was simply time how long you took and give you, so if it took me a lot more hours to complete on my controller than it did on my blaster, then I would get more reward merits on that controller because it's doing it by the hour, But instead what they did is, how much time does it take the average player to complete this? And if you're slower than the average player, then you're going to be getting fewer reward merits per hour. And if you're faster than the average player, you'll be getting more reward merits per hour. It seems it seems like a very strange way to do it to me. It would not have occurred to me, if I were trying to create an algorithm for this, to do it based on the real time it takes you to do a thing. I would have done it based on the things you're doing. Like, even in like D&D, when they or like Savage Worlds, right? They say, an advance per session, and I always think that's a weird mechanic, because you may get a lot done in a session, you may get very little done in a session. I prefer things like when you complete a mission or a chapter in the story or something like that. So like when we did Blood Drive, the book was divided into chapters, and originally I said every 2 chapters you guys complete, I will give you an advance, because I thought because the first chapter was really quick, and I thought they were all going to be, 1 or 2 sessions. And then a couple of the chapters ended up being much longer. The second chapter ended up taking a really long time, and they didn't get an advance for that. And then the third chapter was a little shorter, and I gave them an advance. And then we said, all right, we'll do an advance per chapter, because these chapters are taking a while, and there's a lot in them, right? They weren't just taking a long time. There were a lot of encounters, dramatic tasks, and so forth in some of these chapters, right? Because there was a long period of time, right? Maybe 2 weeks of travel between one encounter and the next inside the chapter. And what they said was, choose random encounters, and you're supposed to basically draw for random encounter probability once a day. And I ended up getting a lot of random encounters, so there might have been 6 or 7 random encounters in between point A and point B within a chapter. And yeah, that might take us 4 or 5 sessions to do, just the random encounters, and then the rest of the chapter might take a couple sessions also. And so it was taking us a long time. And so I started saying, okay, I'll give you an advance per chapter, but I still wasn't doing it by session number. I was doing it by, they were getting experience for completing parts of the story, right? Or in traditional D&D, you get experience for defeating individual monsters, just like we get experience for defeating individual enemies here. We get experience for completing story arcs here. It's not at all based on how long it takes. It's based entirely on level, right? So we get experience points for the individual villains, and then whatever XP we get at level 47 for a level 49 mission, we would get for any level 49 mission. If we went out and called the radio and just got a random mission, we would get the same number of XP for completing the individual missions as we're getting in this story arc. And you get the same amount of XP no matter how long the mission is. We're going to get the same mission XP for completing this mission as we did for completing the previous mission, where all we did was fly around and click a glowy or free a single hostage, right? I found the hostage really easily, and so I didn't defeat anybody but the 2 villains that were protecting the memory, and then the memory was freed, and we got the same mission XP we're going to get for doing this whole thing and taking, 20 or 30 minutes. So it's sort of odd to me that they decided to do reward merits that way when they don't really do anything else that way. Influence, Um, Prestige when they had it, um, XP, all of that is entirely gated by the number of game entities you interact with, not the number of minutes you took to do it. So it's very odd to me. I would never have guessed that minutes to complete the task had anything to do with it, and I especially wouldn't have guessed that how long it took other people to complete this task would have anything to do with how many rewards I was getting. And we are in another one of these situations where I cannot find the victim. And right here, maybe? Yep, right in the middle. And I came right up through here at night and didn't see it. So this is the year 2000 memory. So we did 98. This is 2000. I think there's a 2002. All right, so let's just take a look at this, right? We got 42,000 experience and influence. Didn't we get that with the last one? Yep, 42,000 experience and influence, right? So even though in that mission we only defeated 2 enemies, we get the same amount of XP. So it's not based on time for anything else except merits. Very strange. Not at all how I would have done it. I'm sure they had a reason why, but I can't imagine. Unless it had something to do, like, I don't think they were doing this yet. That maybe it had something to do with when they started having a cash shop, right? And they were trying to equate if you could buy merits from, the cash shop, and they were trying to equate each one to a certain number of minutes of gameplay so they could make it the right price. That's the only thing I could think of that would make you do that, but I could swear reward merits came out long before. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they didn't, maybe they came out with the cash shop. I don't really know. I didn't. I don't think I ever played the game once the cash shop was live. I don't remember. I don't think I played it once it went F to P. Maybe I did. I don't remember. I don't think so. Now, the last time I think I played it was 2009. So somebody tell us when did COH go F to P, free to play, where you were freemium, where you were then could play it for free and then you would pay for things like draws of cards that could give you stuff, and some of them were one of the things that could give you, I think, was reward merits. So I've seen that in action because it's free in Rebirth to get all of that stuff. But and here is the 2002 memory. But yeah, I mean, I guess that would maybe explain it if you could buy something that turned into reward merits, and as a consequence, they wanted to make sure that each dollar was translated into so many hours of gameplay, right? Most games do this to encourage you to pay money, right? They try to make it take so long to get the reward merits in game, right? To make it, I was saying, well, why does it take so long? Why we should be over 600 by now, just by how many story arcs I've done, how many reward merits you expect to get, so that we can get our other ATO set in, but not if they're trying to make you buy it, right? One of the reasons people hate the freemium model with the grinding is that they often tune the drop rates to make them so slow that people just get frustrated and say, I'm going to pay $5 and get 20 more merits just so I can do the thing, right? Heck, it doesn't have to be a freemium game. They do it for pay games. There's a lot of people complaining about, what is it, Top Spin 2000, 2K24 or whatever it is, the current version of Top Spin. There are a lot of people complaining about that because you all of the upgrades that you can get for your player, a lot of those things, um, you can buy them, or you have to do a huge amount of grinding as a tennis player and win a lot of minor tournaments and get a lot of match wins and stuff like that in order to get like a different racket style, just cosmetic, right, or a different outfit. And that's all so that because you can, they want you to pay 9.99 for it. They know you're not going to want to play for 200 hours. You're just going to pay them 9.99, right? And so maybe that's why they did it. I don't know. Giovanna and her defenses. Okay. How long has this been? So we're 25 minutes. It hasn't been that long, so we'll go ahead and do another one. We have a pretty good tray of inspirations. Oh, are we being ambushed? We are. Hello. Anyway, that is why the merit system is so confusing, is because it is based on both a difficulty scale that we don't know about, that's got not necessarily anything to do with level. It's got time to completion factor, and it's got a scaling factor having to do with how much data they had on this particular mission. And I don't know if they ever turned that off. You know, you would think that they got enough data on all the missions by the time the game ended that they wouldn't have that in there, but I don't know, and only the Homecoming guys could probably answer that. I feel like they could take that out, right? Just so what they do is they reduce it for whatever reason. It's lower and it gets closer and closer to 1 the more and more certainty they have apparently. So I would just set that to 1.0 and say we have certainty. We're not going to go through and check it, because it's reducing the number of reward merits by the uncertainty factor essentially. I think this is going to be another outdoor mission, by the way. Why they don't just have this? Yeah. Why they don't just have us board a train? I don't know. All right. So Giovanna's usually in the back here. I think we have to defeat everybody, but let's just take her out, and then we'll worry about everybody else. If we can find her. She's usually, yeah. There she is. All right. So you know what we're going to do. We're going to sweep the area. And so this is one of these things where if it means defeat all, I wish it would just say defeat all in the mission. I'm sure the mission text probably says something about it, but it should still say just defeat all. And if that's what they want us to do, then tell us. We're a little close to her. Okay. Okay, I don't think too many others are that close to her. She is an elite boss, so this could be tough. She's +2. We will see how we do. I'm going to go ahead and put the focus accuracy on because I think strength of will does reduce our endurance increase our endurance regeneration. So, okay, she's not as bad as some of the other elite bosses so far. And by that I just mean how much damage we're doing to her, right? We've taken her down like almost half her more than half her hit point bar already. If we can take her down before the strength of will wears off, that's fine, right? The problem with Madam of Mystery is we couldn't take her down before the strength of will wore off. But some of that may have been my fault for not using the psychic weapon. Yeah, that wasn't bad at all. And now it's just a matter of beating the rest of these guys. Oh, by the way, public service announcement. This should be coming out before this, so before it's over. And I don't know if it's going to apply to the games that are on my wish list. I have a bunch of games on my wish list. Some of them that are, I think, too expensive, like Planet Coaster, which they're still charging $45 for, even though it's an 8-year-old game and they're not developing it anymore. Um, they do that with a lot of old games, not just Frontier, the company that makes uh, Planet Coaster, but lots of companies seem to want to charge full price for a game that's been out for 9 years and isn't being supported anymore, which is insane to me. But anyway, if you're looking for a sale, I believe that the next Steam sale is coming at the end of June, June 27th, and I think it goes into early July, their seasonal sale. These are usually pretty good, and I'm hoping to get, 33% or so off if I can. I mean, if it does that. Sometimes it's more, sometimes a little less. If I can get at least 25% off, I'll go for it, because it'll save me 10, 12 bucks. That's enough for, like, an extra DLC. So I might go for it. But anyway, if you are thinking of purchasing anything on Steam, and it's before the 27th of June, and if you can wait at all, I would suggest waiting until the 27th, because that's when, according to the internet, that is when the next Steam sale is coming out. And it's not just according to the internet. Steam says it on their website. I feel like these flames should hurt you. And them. Like be a damage field, you know? So this is clearly a defeat all, or a defeat nearly all. Because it was just the villains near her that we would have gotten credit for it. And I'm pretty sure I've done this one before and grumbled about the fact that it's a defeat all for no purpose. Right? There's really no reason to make this a defeat all except just to make it take longer. Gosh. Tried to sweep this area over here and I still didn't get everybody. So this guy usually tries to terrify us, and it makes it hard. It makes you it debuffs your 2-hit. So I just put the accuracy on to rebuff it. Okay, so been over there, back over here. Yeah, so in the comments, so what games are you guys looking forward to? What might you buy on the Steam sale? I was really looking forward to, what is it called? Not Blockbuster. The new game about the movies, Box Office, which I think is made by some of the same devs who made the movies, which is one of my all-time favorite games. I really loved it. And I'm really disappointed that, according to the reviews, it's really not finished yet. A lot of people are saying it should just be early access right now because, and they shouldn't be charging full price for it because it's just not ready. It's such a shame that so many games get released in such an unfinished state these days. At least I can forgive a small studio like the guys who make Box Office, just because, it is sort of like City of Heroes. They launched before they were ready, when they only had 40 instead of 50 levels, because they were out of money and they needed to launch, So then they turned the level 40 to 50 content into the first update. And they were able to work on it for a few months after they'd had an infusion of cash from the first set of sales and subscriptions. So I was excited about Box Office, but I think I'm going to let it wait. And I'm hopeful that the devs of that game will improve it and make it as good as the movies was. in the next, 6 months or something, and maybe I'll try it again in the next Steam sale at Christmas time or something. I definitely want to try Planet Coaster. I think, as frustrating as Planet Zoo could be, I think if Planet Coaster doesn't go on sale during the seasonal sale, I will probably wait until it does go on sale and use Planet Zoo. I've got a bunch of assets and resources for that since I played it for a while, and at the time I was playing it, I had most or all of the DLC at the time, and that was a couple years ago, so I haven't gotten the new DLC, but I've got enough of it that I could certainly put a lot of hours into it without needing more of the themes and DLCs and stuff. And that might scratch the itch that I have for designing parks. I haven't done that in a really long time, and I used to have a lot of fun at that. I'm also interested in Manor Lords. I can't remember if that came out. I think it has. I think it might be on sale already, and it might even be a better sale after the 27th. I'm interested potentially in that game. A couple of others that I would like to try. So yeah, if you guys know of cool games, especially indie games, if you know of any indie games that you haven't heard me mention and you want to, like, if you like them, you want to plug them a little bit, go ahead and post them in the comments. I don't mind people giving plugs to their favorite games, especially if they're indie games. Right, I'm a big fan and supporter of indie developers and indie authors. I think I mentioned this in a previous episode, but I was watching a video of somebody who was talking about independently published authors and some of the ones that he's read and which ones he liked and didn't like. And I'm sitting there like taking notes and writing down. I've got a list of, I think, about 7 or 8 authors who apparently have done a really nice job in fantasy and science fiction of independent publishing, and I'm going to try their first book in their series. I'm not going to keep reading it if I don't like it, but if it's good, and this one person who reads a lot of fantasy and science fiction was saying he felt like they were good books. I'm all for supporting those authors and going to their website, purchasing direct from them if possible. Probably won't do that with the very first purchase. I'll probably just get it from Amazon or Barnes and Noble because they do indie, desktop publishing. But if it's something that I ended up really liking the author and stuff, I will happily go to their website and purchase through them so that they get a little bit of extra cash and Amazon doesn't get a cut or as much of a cut. Always want to support independent folks versus those who are published by the big faceless corporations. Not that I don't want to support the authors, right? It's not the author's fault that, Bantam Books or Del Rey or something is a faceless corporation, but I feel like the indie authors have faced such headwinds. And often they're indie because the big publishers said no to them. That's what actually the one guy who was talking about this said. That's one of the things that he always was leery of, and he feels like a lot of people are, is that you have to assume, because most people do try to traditionally publish their work, that if somebody's indie published, except for the niche folks who like doing it almost as a hobby, if somebody's indie published, they're probably doing it because their book was not accepted for publication by the traditional publishing houses, and they couldn't get a literary agent and so on. And sometimes that's just bad luck or whatever, but sometimes it's because the book wasn't that good. And yeah, I've read a couple of indie published books now that are the lit RPG ones, and the writing in them isn't as good, isn't as strong. Both of the ones I've read could have used a pretty serious professional edit, but they weren't bad books, and I still like the idea of supporting independent authors. And I like the idea of supporting independent game companies. So if you know small indie developers that are getting ready to put out a game and you want to plug it here, go ahead and plug it in the comments. I'm perfectly happy with that. and I might check them out, especially if they go on sale during the Steam sale at the end of June. Now, if you are listening to this significantly after that, the sale's over. I think Steam does one basically every season. So they're going to have a summer sale around 4th of July, but they should have a fall sale, in September or something. And they should have a holiday sale in December, and then a spring sale sometime in March or April or something. So you should be able to get something on sale from Steam every few months. They do have other sales at different times, sometimes themed sales like sales on car driving games, or sales on space games, or sales on role-playing games, or sales on strategy games, or sales on games made by European developers or stuff like that. But they always have these seasonal sales apparently, and the next one coming is in June, but in June 27th. But if you miss it, there will be another one in 3 months. My feeling is, unless you just have to have a game, I recommend patience, because a lot of times I put stuff on my Steam list, wish list, and just wait. And I have bought a lot of games for good prices because I have it set up, and I don't know if you can even turn it off, but I have it set up in Steam that when one of the things on my wish list goes on sale, it automatically emails me and says, "Hey, this game is on sale." Now I don't always buy it, but sometimes I'm like, "Hey," and I go over there and it's like a $69.99 game on sale for $25. I'm like, "Yes, score." And there have been times when I've spent like $80 during a sale and gotten like 5 games. I will take that, right? That's really cheap. So in the meantime, you can play City of Heroes for free if you want. But yeah, so go ahead and post what games are you interested in. I'm always curious. It's really hard to find good games on Steam because so many of the games are um, just not that great, right? There's a very low barrier to entry, relatively speaking. And so there are 100,000 games or something on Steam, and only maybe 5,000 of them are any good, and the other 95,000 of them aren't. And I go through the Steam suggestions, where they give you like a list of 15 suggestions that you might like. And it's almost all of them is like no, 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 ignore, 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 ignore. So it can be hard to find good games. If you guys have games you've played that you really love, games you're keeping an eye on, go ahead. It doesn't matter the genre. I'm willing to try a lot of things. So go ahead and post down in the comments. And again, especially if it's an indie editor, please make sure to indicate that, because I will give those a preferential look, and hopefully other people will too. I mean, I would love it if those of us on this channel could support the indie developers, and man, what a neat thing for our audience to be known for. If we were known for anything, is that a little group of people who like City of Heroes and also support indie game developers. So go ahead and throw down in the comments any cool games that you know of that you like to play or that you're looking forward to, you're hoping will go on sale or whatever, and point us to those games, and especially let us know if they're made by indie developers. Okay, so we defeated Vanessa DeVore, but that's not the end of it. We're going to have to fight her some more. But we will do that in the next episode. Until then, guys, I am Scrapperlock, and this has been City of Heroes.